Whitetail Journey team member Chad Eisenaga lives in Southwest Ohio. His 11-year-old son Evan, this was going to be his first year bow hunting with Chad. They're heading to a farm that Chad actually grew up hunting with his dad. So he's hoping things come full circle on this evening.
It's November 4th. We're back out in Indiana. It's really hot, but we're excited to see what happens. So hopefully they'll come through and we'll be able to get a good shot at one.
Now at this point, Chad's got the Extinguisher. He's running camera and he lets out a couple soft grunts. The 3-year-old buck hears Chad's calling and just immediately spins and comes right down. He snort wheezes, you can see his ears pin back, his tail goes out. He goes in kind of a rub urinating pose where he's rubbing his tarsal glands together. About the same time, the 2-year-old that was with the doe up on the ridge comes pounding down that ridge, and they meet pretty much right in front of him. And immediately the 2-year-old knows he's way in over his head and he shies away from that buck. So you can immediately see here as that 2-year-old kind of turns away and he turns towards the guys. Evan is kind of moving, and again, you got to remember he's 11 years old here. This is sensory overload for a kid this age. He's got 2 really nice bucks in front of him. He's moving around trying to get in position for a shot, and the younger buck spots him. And he goes from kind of being intimidated by this other buck to now being on full alert and knowing that he needs to kind of get out of dodge here, that he's in a bad spot. What's real interesting here is that 3-year-old sees him go and doesn't pick up on the fact that his demeanor had changed from one of being intimidated by him to one of danger. And that's really, I think, in the end, what saves this hunt. You watch that 3-year-old and at no time does he spook or get weary that something's up. The 3-year-old stays there and now is constantly just kind of turning and slowly starts to sulk away. And as he's moving away, they hit the call a couple times, but in the meantime, that buck sees that doe that originally was up on that ridge, and now he's gonna go up after her. So now the guys go from having 2 really nice bucks within 25 yards to watching the last of the 2 go up this ridge away from them.
I would have took a shot at him, and when he would have took a few steps over, but that branch was just right in the way.
And this is a really neat moment that Chad looks back on now and is really glad that happened. And as those bucks walk away, Chad simply turns to Evan, and it's a great time as Evan's kind of feeling down about what's happened, for Chad to explain, not only is this part of hunting, but this is how you grow as a hunter, and this is how you learn as a hunter to go through these things. And not to look at them necessarily as mistakes, but as ways to get better and improve as a hunter. And a few minutes after the talk, they hear some rustling up on top of this ridge in front of them. And lo and behold, the 3-year-old that had walked away is now up there with that same doe that the 2-year-old was with earlier. And Chad is still thinking, you know, let's give Evan the full experience of this hunt. Let's let him learn as much as he can through this. So he passes off the Extinguisher to Evan and says, go ahead, make some calls. Let's see if we can get this buck down.
Run again. Buck or doe?
3 buck, that way. With the amount of adrenaline that's flowing through Evan at this point, when he hits that call, it's pretty loud. And those grunts are considerably longer than I think Chad would have liked. And a lot of that was just the amount of air that Evan was letting through this call at this time. With the Extinguisher, that is still the perfect sound of a deer. And in fact, it's turned into more of a mature deer, more of a challenging grunt to this buck. And you can see this buck immediately snap his head up, and on the second grunt, he is spinning around and he is zeroed in. You can just tell by his demeanor at that point, something's about to happen. So at this point, if you're not cheering for Evan, you're probably not watching this, because it's about to get pretty real for him. Without even seeing him, you can tell exactly what's going on. The anxiety is flowing at an all-time high. His breathing, you can just hear it. I mean, it's all out of control for him right now, and he's trying to keep his composure to the point where this buck is walking in, and it's pretty evident he's probably going to get a shot. And it's almost a curiosity thing at this point, because this buck isn't coming in all postured up like he would be to this calling sequence. I mean, I really think this deer is coming in, the calling sequence just so real to him that he had to almost prove himself wrong. All of this has happened at once, and the buck stops and pins him. And you see the buck look right up at him. And the poor kid, like we said, is just out of his mind at this point. He made a great shot after going through, an hour of just ups and downs and ups and downs.
Oh my God, he's huge.
Oh, take that extinguisher and kill that deer. How many times?
When I was in the stand, we saw this buck come past us at 30 yards and we didn't have a shot. So that was really disappointing. But then I gave 3 grunts with my extinguisher, and then he just came back. I'm happy, really, really happy. He's a big, really big bodied deer. This is exciting.
So a couple takeaways from this hunt. Obviously, Chad and Evan have an incredible hunt, regardless of anything else. This is a moment that neither one of them will ever forget. And the nice thing that's come from this, obviously, is not only does Evan have a great buck down, but how much he's learned and how much Chad's been able to pass on to him in this. And so I think for a father and son, it doesn't get any better than this from the father's perspective. What we can learn about this from Evan's perspective is a lot here. Evan's pretty mature for 11 years old. I mean, to hold himself together and make that shot and go through that whole sequence that he's just gone through, there's a lot of grown men out there that would have had a hard time keeping it together through all that, and yet Evan come through it with flying colors. The one thing I would say about the extinguisher in this, that call resonated the perfect sounds and tones that it needed to, even with Evan's excited breath going through it. There's just a lot going on there. The call held up, it created the scenario, it created the illusion, and it allowed what will be a lifelong memory for these two to unfold right in front of them.
Want to experience the same results you just witnessed? Use what the Deer Society experts use. The Extinguisher deer call and black rack rattling system are the highest rated deer communication systems of all time, and less than 1% of deer hunters will have the opportunity to buy one this season. Get yours today at thedeersociety.com. Order now.